Welcome, welcome. Well, Children's Week means small garments, but remember, something very small can still be incredibly intimidating. And to change the subject, Esme.
So we've asked them to make carnival costumes.
So we have.
Have you been to carnival?
I have, actually. I've been to the Notting Hill Carnival. I've sat on a window ledge with David Bowie.
Have you?
Watching the carnival. But we weren't wearing feathers.
Welcome to the stage, your host for the evening, Shelly Vella.
Good afternoon. Today I have the pleasure of introducing a real national treasure, and I've been sitting chatting with her backstage. She's phenomenal. She, of course, of the Precision Cut Bob, the Statement Jewellery, and her role as judge on the Great British Sewing Bee. She is, of course, creator and co-creator of many influential and iconic pieces of clothing for celebrity, for fashion, for film. Please give a hearty Tring welcome to the wonderful Esme Young.
Where's the thing? Oh, you've got a bow or two there. I just want to say thank you all for coming. It's brilliant. Also, the other thing I want to say is, you know that bit of film you've just seen? Without that, I wouldn't be here, without the sewing bee, but also without name-dropping David Bowie. Right, here we go. Now, this is me with my mum. I'm the baby, and my sister. My mum looks quite glamorous, don't you think? Then there's me dressing up in my mum's clothes, and I made the headband and the necklace. So I loved dressing up as a child. Well, I still do. Right, now, I put this up because I was looking at this photograph about 2 years ago, and I was thinking to myself, why do I look so serious? And then it clicked. As a child, I was partially deaf. I had something called glue ear. So obviously, they were told, smile, smile. And I was thinking, so I didn't smile. And that really influenced my partial deafness, really influenced my creativity, because it was a way of me interacting with people. So this is me at St. Martin's. I did foundation in Cambridge, then I went to St. Martin's. And these outfits I'm wearing, I bought at jumble sales. So that patchwork coat was a kid's dressing gown. I've still got it. And I've got a little bow in my hair, haven't I? Right, this is Swanky Modes. This is me on my motorbike outside Swanky Modes. And at Swanky Modes, when we first started, we bought fabrics, old fabrics from shops, local shops. So what I'm wearing there on the motorbike is a car upholstery. And it's leopard skin, and it's from the 50s. So, and on the other side is me modelling for somebody called Willie Walters, who was one of Swanky Modes. And that was her final collection at St. Martin's. And there, I helped to finish her collection. And there I am modelling. So here we all are, Swanky Modes. So when we finished college, we thought there were no clothes we wanted to buy in shops to wear. So we thought, you know what? We'll open a shop and we'll start making clothes we want to wear. So I'm in the middle, Willie's the blonde one, Mel's blonde as well, actually. But you can see she's quite a lot taller than the rest of us, particularly me. And then on the other side with the black hair is Judy. So we were 4 women that opened a business, a fashion business. That is really, really unusual. And I don't think it even happens nowadays. So me and Mel would get dressed up and we'd go round and see fashion editors at different mags. And this was a picture from Nova magazine. And these pictures were taken by Helmut Newton. Now that shower curtain fabric, so second-hand old fabrics we also bought from a bath shop or shower shop or whatever you call it. This really put us on the map. People loved this. And Helmut Newton photographed it exactly as I had drawn it, because Caroline Baker, who was the fashion editor, said, would we do some drawings to send to Helmut Newton? And the drawings I did were naked bodies underneath, and that's how he photographed them. Now, this next collection was our first collection of Lycra. We were one of the first people who made clothes out of Lycra. Before that, they were made for sportswear. And the picture in the middle is the first print we ever did, and it was hand-painted, and it said Swanky Modes. And this was inspired by silk pink pajamas I bought from a jumble sale that I used to wear underneath with a bra. It didn't do up at the front, and I'd go to parties. Oh, and here's another version of the padlock dress on Grace Jones. This padlock dress is in the Museum of London. This is our second collection. It was called the Tower Track, and you can see I rode a motorbike, as you probably realised, and then quite a few of us all started riding motorbikes, so that's why we did the Tower Track. And on the left-hand side, well, as it is, yeah, sorry, is the amorphous dress, which is in the V&A, and on the right-hand side is the flasher that, you can see why it's called a flasher, can't you? Oh, and this is us. We did Andrew Logan's Miss World. We were backing singers for this woman called Yvonne Gold, who used to come in the shop when she was 15. Then she became a makeup artist, and she did the makeup for lots of our photo shoots. So she was singing at Andrew Logan's alternative Miss World flat. And we were the backing singers. We sang better than her. Then Divine was being the presenter of everyone coming on, and she said we were her daughters. Right, here we go. So in 1980, well, earlier on in the 70s, we did a musical, and then in 1980, we did another musical to celebrate the new decade, and it was also to promote our new collection. And, you know, then in London, there was a real creative community, and everybody did, it was called Seems Like a Dream, everybody did it for nothing. So everyone who modelled for it were people who worked for us, were models, there were singers, there were artists, there were musicians. Glenn Matlock was our band. Well, he got the band together. So, I mean, it was amazing. The only thing we had to pay for was the clothes, obviously, and renting the theatre.
Come big and small, red, blue and short and tall, lots of men. I'll take them in the kitchen, in the lounge, or in the hall, lots of men. That's the talent, oh, and we love it, lots of men.
So that's Eve Ferret, and that each scene was celebrating a different collection. So that was the Lycra.
It's been amazing, this whole show and everything. Just amazing, really, when you think about it. Totally over the top.
And it certainly was totally over the top and such fun. Anyway, the next thing is, before Swanky Modes closed, I started working on films and ads. And this is probably the most iconic outfit I made. Sorry. It's the bunny outfit for Bridget Jones, the first Bridget Jones. And Renée Zellweger, she kept saying, make it tighter, tighter, tighter. And it was so tight she couldn't sit down in it. But she wanted the cleavage, and she certainly got one. Right, what's next? Oh, I also made the suit for Dale Winton and this flasher dress, modern version, well, modern-ish version of the flasher dress, and this was for Train Spotting. And the person with the blonde hair worked for us. She was called is called Rachel Fleming, and she then became a costume designer, and she got me involved. Now, on the left-hand side is Two Faces January. The reason I put this in is because I made every outfit for Kirsten Dunst. And I got my students involved. I did pay them. I would not pay them. And I was talking to one of them, we were chatting, and I said, I don't know how it came up, but I said the only time I'd flown first class was with my mum flying to Brussels. I said the only difference was there was a curtain behind us and we got a glass of champagne. A week later, I flew first class to LA to fit Kirsten Dunst. I mean, can you imagine? It was bizarre. Anyway, the next one is Renée Zellweger in the pajamas. Now, I worked on the third Bridget Jones baby. And actually, Renée Zellweger knew that I'd been filming Sewing Bee, and someone I went with, we had a pickup thing. Do you know what pickups are? Well, it's when you make a film and something's gone wrong and they want to refilm it. It'll only be a tiny thing. Anyway, she watched the Sewing Bee and she said she thought it was brilliant. So that's a compliment, wouldn't you say? Now, at that point, they couldn't find the pajamas, and the original pajamas had been bought. They couldn't find the fabric, they couldn't find the pajamas. So I had to remake them, and I got one of my students to make the print for the pajamas, and they got it. Oh, and I put this one in because this is Crocodile Dundee, and this is the amorphous dress, which, as I said earlier, is in the British Museum, so I had to put it in again, didn't I? Now, what have we got here? A huge bow, a giant bow. This is one of my ex-CSM students, and he was on the MA, and I cut all the patterns for him. And I still work for him. He's called Ashish, and he's brilliant.
Do you love me, really love me? Say yes. Say yes. Daylight comes and opens like a lotus, your eyes. Your eyes. Needles in my body when you let me caress, caress.
Well, I had to put this in, didn't I? Because it's a version of the amorphous dress. This was at the V&A, the show was at the V&A, and it was retrospective of his various shows. I mean, this was a few years ago, actually. And he was one of the first designers who had men wearing women's clothes on the catwalk. And he's a brilliant person to work for, I have to say. Right, now this is something else I do at CSM. This is called the White Show. So this is the first make project the first years have in the first term. And the three topics, borderlines, lovers, and art. And they can do what they like. They have to convince us that there's the connection, but they have to make it all in white fabric. And these are toiles. You can see a big mess behind. This is a picture of a finished garment. And this is the show. Right, so can you imagine your first year, your first term, and you have a show, fashion show. It's pretty amazing. Now, the next thing is we do a project every year with Grayson Perry, and the students do a print for him. He's really, really generous. He buys the clothes off them for 500 quid, the ones he picks, but he also gives them Claire's. So it's a ceramic, it's gold, silver, and bronze. So it's the first, second, and third. And his favorite is the gold, his second favorite is the silver, and his third favorite is the bronze. And imagine getting a Grayson Perry.
I would like everybody here, all the students, to say a big thank you to all the staff for being so good and working so hard for you. I'm sure many of them have put in hours beyond the call of duty, so I'd like a nice round of applause. Good stuff. Without them, this course wouldn't work, I know.
Especially these two.
Okay, good. This year's winner, this person has worked, I saw that they worked incredibly hard from the beginning. They understood the brief, they put in the hours, and their thing at the end looked like a drawing! So the winner, and it was always an easy one, is Frederica.
So it's really great working with Grayson. He's so generous, he's such fun, it's brilliant. Now, this is a project I've been doing recently at college. It's called Exploding Fashion. And there's an exhibition in Antwerp on at the moment. There's a book called Exploding Fashion. And this is me on the table, as you can see, cutting out a pattern. So we did, I can't remember, Vionnet, Charles James, Halston, Balenciaga, and Com. So we went to all these museums and looked behind the seams, at the actual original, and from them we made a pattern. But we weren't allowed to touch them, so we had to instruct them what measurements we wanted. Now, this is the Charles James. So we've got the original, we've got the toile, and we've got the one we made. Now, we also went to the V&A, and when we were there, asked them if they'd get the amorphous dress out from their archive, which they did. And then there's me on the other side in 1982, something like that. And this is when the amorphous dress was on display at the V&A. And I'm wearing one of our collections, and it was called Tonton Macoute. Anyway, there you go. Back to the sewing bee. What's really important to me is detail, even down to the colour of the thread.
I'm both daunted and looking forward to being judged. Esme is a super punk icon.
Every time I hear you whistle.
Well, I'm sorry, but I think that bow is really mean. It looks like a dog biscuit.
Turn round, I've got to look at the bow.
Is it big enough, Esme?
It is. And I like that it's so 3D and sticking up. Well done.
Thank you.
That's all you got to do, a massive bow.
You hear that, guys? Massive bows every week.
I'd like to have one just as sweet as that. Wherever I go, they shout, hello, where did you get that hat?
I'm going to go for it. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
It was only gravity holding it on.
Have you understitched it?
Esme has got a bit of a reputation. She'd actually managed to not only destroy the button, but actually pull it off the actual hat. I wouldn't like to meet her in a dark alley on a night, I tell you.
You haven't finished the sleeves.
I wanted to leave it raw, a kind of mixture between a bit of structured and a little bit of like free, softer, a bit more free.
I think you're making that up.
Gosh, she's got you there.
Okay. I very much like the buttons, but the top is too long and it's too short in the back crotch, so it's got a hungry bum.
You don't want one of those.
First impressions?
I think it fits really well under her arse.
That was the intention.
It's sexy.
Is she making you blush?
So, there we are. That's all I've got to say at the moment.
And welcome back to the stage, Shelly Vella.
Look.
Well, Esme, there's a lot to unpick there, isn't there? Ben,
I'm good at unpicking.
I know you're good at unpicking, and I was terrified about what I was going to wear tonight. I mean, I think most of you in the audience by now can see what a legend Esme is beyond the Great British Sewing Bee. And for me, as a person who works in fashion, it's quite an honour to sit with her tonight. Behind the stage here, we have two of the pieces that she's mentioned that I really just wanted to show you before we go into more questions. The amorphous dress, which is in the V&A, which I strongly believe influenced Versace's Elizabeth Hurley dress. Do you remember that dress Elizabeth Hurley wore?
Please do.
Go on, Ben.
I think it'd suit you.
Do you think?
Yeah, I could get you a wig.
This we'd like to see, Ben. But no, the more I look at that dress, the more you see the massive influence that Esme and her colleagues at Swanky Modes had. And when I was talking to, Esme mentioned earlier Caroline Baker, who again is an iconic person in the fashion industry. And when I spoke to her this week, she said Swanky Modes were responsible for influencing people like Moschino, which I'm sure you've heard of, and Fiorucci, another brand. So massive influence that you've had on, yeah, it's a really, really important. Thanks, Ben. Oh, and the shower curtain. I think people need to see the shower curtain dress. Yeah.
Oh, what's going on?
He's going to put it on. Which, imagine that with a naked lady underneath.
Yeah, and this is all cut in one. There's no side seams. Because sewing plastic shower curtain is quite tricky.
Would you glue it?
Well, do you know what we did to begin with? We used soldering iron. And then me and Mel went to this factory and asked them if they'd make them for us, because they glued or whatever they did. They just laughed at us because we didn't have a big enough order.
But the wonderful thing about this is you were really ahead of your game with sustainability, because you were using remnants and discarded stock, weren't you? Well, no, it's something you're passionate about.
I think lots of young people in those days, you know, bought everything from jumble sales and all that.
Go, Ben.
And I think now young people are doing the same thing. And I do think that too many clothes are made. So now I've stopped buying clothes. I just rebuy them or recycle them or, you know, chop things up, sew them together.
What would your advice be to people here about shopping more sustainably? And also, I imagine a lot of the people here want to make their own clothes and are inspired by you and the Great British Sewing Bee. So what would your advice be? Where to start? For someone like me who can't sew, even though I work in the fashion industry, what's a great place to start?
Well, what about charity shops?
Charity shop shopping, of course, yes, but what about making your own? What's the easiest piece to start with?
Well, I think the easiest piece would be that. Two of those to sew together.
Fair enough. I was really intrigued when you were saying that your mother locked her wardrobe.
Oh, God.
Because
yes.
it was full of, was it full of Ozzie Clark and Celia Birtwell?
Well, no, it was...
You were customising it, though?
Yes. So I used to nip in her wardrobe and I'd take her clothes and I'd fiddle with them, change them. And she had this Edwardian dress that I know had belonged to her grandmother. I chopped it up. So she locked her cupboard.
Is that the advice you give to your students? Go and take your parents' wardrobes apart.
The thing is that fashion has always referred back to what's gone before. So we used to look at the 30s, and you could buy 30s dresses in 70s, 60s, and 70s in jumble sales and things. And the bias cut dresses, which were 30s, were figure hugging. So that was our influence with Lycra.
But also you love dancing, don't you? So
Yes.
you were creating clothes to go out and dance in.
Oh yeah, clothes to go out in.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And tell us a bit about your creative community, because I loved hearing that you lived in a squat where you had the Sex Pistols come and visit. It was quite exciting. You know, a lot of people, what's it called, garment dropping, where you talk about clothes, the people that you've dressed and the people that you've met. And you also told me backstage about somebody you bumped into at the Barbican, which I don't think anybody here would have heard.
Yes. I'm not going to say.
The Dalai Lama. From David Bowie to the Dalai Lama.
Well, where's these?
Tell all.
Okay, I live near the Barbican. I don't live in the Barbican. I wish I did, but I couldn't afford it. And I was going to the cinema. So I was walking down these stairs and these guys came up in all these robes. I was thinking, what on earth's going on here? Then this one guy came out and he went like this to me. So I went like that back to him. It was the Dalai Lama. I mean,
it's pretty awesome.
Well, it's weird.
Tell us who your favourite person is that you've ever dressed. I mean, because you've dressed so many people in films, but...
Oh, God, I don't have one.
You don't have one?
Oh, there is one person, the only celebrity I've ever been nervous about, and that was Dustin Hoffman. It didn't last that long, but it was my age. You know, if you see, when I was young, he was a big star. And I'd been told I was going to do stuff for him. But I thought, fine. I walked in the room and I went, oh my God. It didn't last very long. And then at the wrap party, he came up and asked me to dance with him. So I love a dance. So that was really good fun.
That's pretty amazing. I wanted to ask you, I know that there was a necklace that you've worn on the sewing bee that has the paint bottles on it. And I believe that was the first piece that you ever got press coverage with, the Swanky Modes. Is that right? You know, the paint colour?
Yes, I made it. It was making a statement about COVID, basically.
Oh, okay. So
that was making
press
a
for sewing bee.
Because those little bottles had all the disinfectant stuff in, and all cameramen, sound men, they all had them hanging off their belts. So I said, I'm going to make something from them. And I did, and then I wore it.
So what's your tip for making a great statement necklace?
My tip is being inspired by anything. Absolutely anything. Whatever tells a story. Just go for it.
Do you have a favourite piece of clothing?
Well, actually, some of the favourite pieces of clothing were my mum's. I've still got them.
That you haven't murdered with customisation?
No. And in fact, I gave one to one of Swanky Modes' daughter.
Oh.
So, yeah, I love those. And obviously, I love all Swanky Modes stuff. I've got a whole load of them in my workshop.
And do you have the whole archive of all the pieces?
Well, I don't know if it's the whole, no, not every single piece, but also Willie, who was one of, she's got a big archive, so, and Judy, and Mel. So we've all.
So between you have it, yeah. It's very iconic. Which designers do you most admire today? Apart from Ashish, obviously, who you pattern cut for.
Yes. Do you know what? Since I've been teaching, and for me, it's all about the students and being in the moment. And you know, quite a lot of the students I teach end up as fine artists or musicians. So it's not just about being in fashion, it's about them expressing who they are. So to tell you the truth, I don't really follow designers.
No.
Anymore. I mean, obviously I used to, but no, I don't.
But what pieces of advice would you give to people wanting to go into design?
Well,
to get a really sacred place at St Martin's, because St Martin's is the best school in London for fashion design.
In the world.
In the world.
They're in Antwerp.
Yes, you're right, the world.
Well, I just say express who you are. And actually, you know what? If you want to go and work for a company, do it. That's what I always say to myself. Whatever comes up, grab it. You know, what you're going to lose.
Tell me, who's been through your particular course that we might know about, or I might know about design-wise? I mean, obviously you taught Ashish, who I know, and I go to his shows.
I can't remember.
You can't remember that many?
There's so many.
So many.
Craig, oh God. Craig.
You're going to remember this later.
Green. Craig
okay.
Green. Yeah, I taught him. I can't honestly. You know, there've been so many, and they've all gone into different areas and quite a lot of them end up in Paris, actually, with whopper designers.
Before we go to questions with the audience, because I know everybody's dying to talk to you and ask you questions, but I just wondered what creative advice you'd give to everybody here to take away with them tonight, and so that they can make something fabulous. I want to go away and make something after talking to you today.
Well, what I would say is, you say you want to make something.
I do. I want to learn to sew. Sandra, Ben's wife, will attest that I'm rubbish.
Hang on a minute. Not just sewing. Create whatever you want, whatever fills you with joy, whatever expresses who you are. That's what I'd say.
Perfect. Legend.
As we go into the audience questions, please can you wait for the microphone to come to you? There's a microphone down here and there's a microphone up there, and just put your hand up, obviously, if you're ready to ask a question, or include now, and the online audience. And there's a question here at the front here. The online audience, get your questions texted on the Q&A function. But thank you. Can you bring the microphone down the front? Brilliant.
Hi, Esme. You're a true inspiration.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you are. I just wanted to ask how it came about that you went on the sewing bee.
Oh, well, that's quite an amusing story. I was at a party,
of course,
a friend's 50th birthday party, and I started chatting to this woman, and you know, like you do, oh, what do you do? What do you do? I said to her, what do you do? She said, oh, I'm a producer on a sewing program. I went, oh, really? And she said, would you be interested? I went, yeah. And she said, oh, well, we've got someone, so I don't know, whatever. Then 3 years later, they got in touch with me because they wanted somebody new, but actually there were 17 people who auditioned. I got it.
Of course.
There's a question here.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for that. That was really interesting. I love your cardigan. Do you knit?
This is Ashish.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, do you knit and crochet?
I do.
Okay.
I've got lots of crochet books. I've got crochet books from the 1900s.
Wow.
Where they, honestly, it's mind-boggling. Such fine hooks and such fine threads. It would, I have done a bit of it, but it takes so long. But I knitted a really long scarf, taller than me.
Oh, wow.
For a charity, which was fun.
It looks like you made your own piece there. Did you make that? Yeah. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There's a question at the front here, right in the middle.
Hi, Esme. I just wondered, how do you choose the contestants on the sewing bee? Do you have anything to do with that, or is it?
Well, to begin with, we don't. Me and Patrick don't, because so many people apply, and they apply online, and they send stuff, and gradually it gets less and less and less, and then we're told about how this person did that person. Did that person? What does that mean? But we don't have much input into that. But what we do have a lot of input into is the challenges. I like the necklace. Quite sparkly.
What's Patrick like?
He's very nice. Well, I'm not going to say he's awful, am I? But I do think we're a really good double act.
Right.
Don't you think? Yeah. And he's great. And when I did the first one, he was really supportive of me because, you know, it was the first one. I didn't quite know how it all worked. But he was great.
He seems to make everybody swoon, doesn't he, as well? I wonder why.
He's very, very handsome.
Yeah.
There's a question on the balcony up there.
Hello, Esme. I was just wondering, is there any challenge you wish you could have had a go at making along with the contestants?
Well, tell you the truth, I can do all the challenges.
Of course. Blindfolded.
Yeah, with one arm behind my back.
There's a question down the front here. Right in front, keep walking. Yeah. Hand up, there we go.
I was going to ask, when you're judging the pieces that they make, obviously the final pieces and that, they're obviously the skills, but when it comes to the one like when they make something out of bits and pieces or parachutes and stuff like that, how do you choose, judge those pieces?
Well,
because it's obviously more random, isn't it?
For me, so the pattern challenge is all about sewing. The transformation is all about creativity. So for the transformation, do you know what? I think it must be a really difficult challenge. I think you've got an hour and a half and you've got to really quickly decide what you're going to do. So it's transforming something into something else, which for me is creativity. And then the made to measure for me is a combination of them both. So I do think it's interesting. And some people who do really brilliant sewing don't necessarily do the most imaginative made to measure.
Looks like we've got the question from probably the youngest audience member up here.
Oh, I can't see you.
Oh, with a bow.
What age did you start sewing?
Oh, well, I started sewing at school, and I think the first thing we sewed was something cross-stitch. Do you know what cross-stitch is? It's a kind of embroidery. But the first garment I ever made was when I was 7. And we made a gathered skirt, and we also made a knitted jumper, which was basically 2 squares. And at the bottom you had rib, in the middle you had stocking stitch, and at the top it was moss stitch. So it was a way of us learning different stitches. So I guess 7, maybe 6.
There's a question just here on the front row. I've got a couple of online ones as well we'll come to.
Hello, Esme. I'm quite an avid sewer, but I just wondered if you could just give some advice as to whether you should make something absolutely perfect, or if you've nearly finished, there's a little tiny kind of glitch on the inside that no one's going to see. Is it okay just to say that's finished?
I think it's absolutely okay. And if you do a glitch, the next time you won't, because you learn from mistakes, and that's how you learn stuff. So I think it's fine.
How do you feel about the state of the things within the industry, particularly to do with sewing and things? It's not as intuitive as it was maybe 50 years ago, where there was far more creativity. I mention that because of we had Keith Brymer-Jones here last night, and the lack of pottery in schools, the lack of kind of learning. Is that a concern within sewing as well, or is sewing more an intuitive thing within the family home?
Well, I think sewing is exactly the same, people, and cooking. People no longer learn that at school, or very few. And I think it's to do with schools now want to go up some, I don't know what it's called, but it's ticking a box. So they want people good at things you get marks from, and then they get more money, don't they?
I guess so.
Something like that. There's a name for it. So I think that's why they don't teach that stuff anymore. But I don't think people are less creative. Why would they be? I mean, maybe they don't have, well, I don't know anything about doing stuff on a computer. But I don't believe young people aren't creative. I really don't.
Mm. I've got online. Oh, there's a question up here. Yep.
Well, it's myself. I don't know much about the fashion industry. Well, I know nothing about the fashion industry, but I was curious because you said 4 women, including you, open a studio in London, and you said that didn't happen before, and I don't think it's happened now either. Is that because you were 4 women doing it? It's not a female industry? Is that because it's not as simple to open a studio now? I was wondering why.
Well, I think because, you know, most women designers have a man who does all the business and all that. And we were 4 women. And we really, I mean, it was brilliant how we worked together.
The original Spice Girls.
Honestly, it was really brilliant how we worked together, and we bounced off each other. And, you know, I did graphics at college, so I didn't do fashion. I always liked making things, always. But I never learnt pattern cutting in a traditional way. But when we started working at Swanky Modes, one of us, Judy, had been to the Royal College.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So she was a good pattern cutter. So she helped us. But one thing I thought was really interesting, she'd go, "You've got to do it like this." And I go, "Why?"
But it's good to question, isn't it? And I think that's something that you seem to champion.
But then she'd go, "You've got a really good point there." And so, you know, cutting shapes, all those things change through eras and centuries. And so don't dismiss stuff just because, well, look at my cardigan.
I'm going to do a question from Catherine. What is the most satisfying thing you have ever done in your career? Can you pick one thing that stands out? That must be very hard.
No, I've done so many things. One thing, though, is I take chances. And I, you know, if I'm offered something, well, not jumping off a cliff, but I will take risks. And if, like doing the sewing bee.
You're an adventurous spirit, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah.
You know, go with it.
I'll do one more. I've got here. Well, I've got 2 more here. Then there's one on the front row in a second. Hello, Esme. This is from Ali. I am 4'11" and 3/4, and struggle to find clothes to fit. Most fashion seems to exclude people who are not normal size. Has that impacted you at all? I mean, is that perhaps a reflection of your creativity, that you, perhaps your height made you want to have to make stuff? Because
well, I started sewing and making things before I, you know, got to be 18. And in fact, as a kid at my junior school, I was champion high jumper. Then everyone got taller than me. It's fun now.
Let me do, this is from Katie. Despite your success, have you ever received negative feedback from someone who you really respected? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Well, I don't think so, but if I had, I'll put it somewhere else, over there. So,
do you want to come down with the microphone to here?
Thanks. Great to see you here today. What is pattern cutting? You've mentioned the designer that you pattern cut for. What is that? How does that work?
Well, think about it. What you're doing is you're turning something flat into something 3D. So you have to have a certain vision, but quite a lot of our students do something called draping. So they have a stand, a body stand, and they play with fabric on the stand. And I think when you're starting, that is really, really helpful, actually. But for Ashish, I've made him what's called a block. And a block is something that you use to start a dress or a trouser or whatever. But I think, when you're young and you've never done it before, it's good to relate it to a body.
There's another question up on the balcony.
Hello, Esme. Just to return to the classroom again, I've been a teacher for many years and I agree that children are still very creative, but I just wondered if there'd been a teacher who had inspired you, not just to sew, but to, inspire that creativity in you, or that, helping you to realise that you can take chances and rule the world.
Well, I wish. I went to convent, and one of the nuns was very inspirational. We'd do drawing, she'd bring a bunch of flowers in and get us to draw them. She used to read us books every day. We'd have a chapter from a different book. We learned about art history, so we practiced doing impressionism. We were taken to art galleries, so we were taken to the National Gallery. So I think I was really, really lucky with my school, and most people wouldn't expect nuns to be like that, but they were brilliant.
Fantastic. Another question on the balcony.
Hi, Esme. You're super stylish and very, very fashionable, which is great. But what do you have in your wardrobe in terms of accessories that has been knocking around all the time and you pull out to make something look totally different?
Oh, accessories?
A favourite accessory piece, like a belt, or there must be something.
I do chop up clothes, and I might turn a dress into a top and a skirt, or a coat into a jacket and a cape, or, but the jewellery, I make jewellery.
Did you make you didn't, the pearls, no?
Well, actually, I know, I didn't make them, but some of these pearls belong to my mum. So think how old they are.
So your idea is just to layer them all up as much as possible.
For these, for the pearls, and they go with the buttons. I've even got necklaces and things I bought when I was 14, which I've got. And I used to make things for my mum for Christmas, and I've got one of the necklaces I made for her. And so every year I'd make something for her, and one year I was too busy and I gave her a vase. Do you know what she said to me? At last, a real present.
Not the answer I expected. Ooh, harsh.
Yes.
That's where you get your little...
Well, she was a particular kind of woman. she was very funny, actually, and she had a really interesting view on life, but she could be quite tricky.
We've got enough time for probably a couple more questions. Let me just ask you about your fellow Swanky Modes girls. Are you still in touch with them? Are you still friends with them?
Yes, we all hang out together still. Yeah, we do. In fact, last week, was it? I went out with Mel. Judy lives in Hastings, so we don't see so much of her. But Willie, I'm going out with next week. So, yeah, we all are really good friends.
Fantastic.
So we had no major falling out. Well,
are they slightly envious of your success? Are they sort of...
No. They're really supportive.
Brilliant.
Really supportive. Well, of course, I'm talking about Swanky Modes a lot, so it's about them as well. But they wouldn't not be supportive.
Of course. We have another question at the back. I'm looking for one more question after that.
Hi, Esme. Great to hear you this afternoon. What happens to all those lovely garments that are made in the show?
So what happens is they hold on to them till after the show goes out, and then they give them back to contestants. So, yeah. So they're kept, they're not thrown away, they're kept.
Are you in touch with any of the contestants? Do you stay in touch with any?
Well, a bit on Instagram and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bumped, well, one of them asked me to, sign the book. That's what it was.
Yeah, we signed my book, actually.
And so I said, okay. So we met in my local park, and it was great to see her. So, I'm not going to say to them, no, I'm not going to meet up with you. I definitely will.
Well, on that note, that seems like an ideal time to stop, actually. The idea of signing books, which has been infiltrated into the audience now. Can we have a wonderful round of applause?
Legend.
And can I just give a little thank you to Shelly Vella?
Yes. An honour.
I've known Shelly for over 30 years, and I'm slightly in awe of her and the career she's had in working for Cosmo and all the other places. And she's just a brilliant friend to have. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, pleasure! What a pleasure!
Can I say something? I'd just like to say again, thank you all for coming.
Yay!